Okay, fair warning. This one has mature kind of themes. It has talk about neglect and abuse mentally and partly physically, and also talks about suicide. Remember, suicide is wrong. Talk to someone about it if you're feeling that way. Second, always talk to your family and do not make them feel like you're being neglected by them. And if they aren't listening, talk to a family or a friend to get it sorted out. Don't go to suicide, it's not the answer. Alright? Right, next chapter. Chapter 3. Regrets. It was already dark, and Izumi was walking her way home. Well, still thinking about Izuku's response when she told him to kill himself. She was cursing herself when she blurted out suddenly. She didn't meant what she said. It just came out in the heat of the moment. She knew she couldn't take back what she said to him. She already said it, and it only hoped that Izuku didn't actually took it seriously. She just wanted to help him. Realize that there are dreams that can be too far to reach sometimes, and dreams to be a hero without a quirk is one. She admitted to herself that he could be one like this Uncle Ozawa, who can only erase quirks and forget quirkness. He also have to deal with the mutual types of quirk that can't be erased. But he was an exception in comeback. Unlike Izuku, who was small, tiny and frail, she was scared that the worst was to come if he pursued to be a hero. So when they were 4, she thought that she was shown him the way that heroes get beaten up with quirks, and he couldn't defend himself because he doesn't have one. Then he can maybe stop dreaming an impossible dream. She had to admit that her logic was dumb as fuck. But she had already started it, so no going back now. She then remembered Izuku's face when they were young. He had a smile on his face every day and would bright up the room he was in. He made everyone happy, but now things were different. He no longer smiles and just looked dead inside. Then his eyes that once had the colourful shine of brightly only now dimmed to the point where almost felt lifeless. It was as if he was only a shadow body with no soul inside. Hello, body with no soul inside. Sorry. She felt guilty because she knew she was the sole reason. She then remembered Kazuki, who she talked with yesterday after school. She grabbed him by his arms and dragged him behind the tree to talk. She was being skeptical with Kazuki, being all friends with her brother. She just wanted to make sure that he wasn't doing anything with Izuku behind closed curtains and was actually hurting him. She felt like a hypocrite. It was as if she wasn't hurting him, in that she hurt him a lot through the years. I'm a terrible sister, aren't I? She said to herself. She hanged her head low. I have to make things right, she said to herself, trying to lift her spirits up. She then ran her way home and barged into the house. She took off her shoes and placed them gently on the shoe rack. She then noticed that Izuku's shoes wasn't placed there. Is he not home yet? She asked herself. She walked down the halls to the house and looked at many pictures frames on the shelves. It was pictures of their trips, where they were travelling together. She took a look closer and gasped when she realised that Izuku was nowhere to be seen in the pictures. It was only her and Mum and Dad. She looked through every picture that almost dated back 7 years and was nowhere to be seen. Inko saw her daughter on the shelves filled with the picture frames. She saw her covering her mouth with her hands as tears made her way to her face. Izumi? What's wrong? Ku asked, worried, as she walked her way to her daughter. Mum, why is Izuku not in with us in our pictures? She said with a choking in her tears. She looked confused and looked over at the picture frames. She scanned every single one, and her eyes widened when she saw Izuku is in none of them. She panicked and took out the photo album from one's drawers and flipped through every page. It was still the same. Izuku was nowhere to be seen in all the pictures, and she felt a knot tightening in her stomach as she continued to search for her son in the album. It went far back when Izuku and Izumi were 4, and she found a picture at that age. It was them on the beach together, with Izuku having a bright smile as he played with the sand, covering his father in them. He was happy. Inku then started crying. She felt horrible, and guilt was eating her inside. She felt like a horrible mother as she continued to sob persistently. Toshinoa heard her crying and rushed into the living room. There he was, his wife and daughter crying, with photo album in their lap. He was confused at what made them crying. What happened? Why are you both crying? He asked them with concerned tone as he made his way to them. I'm a horrible mother. I forgot about Izuku. We pushed him away, she sobbed uncontrollably, as did Izumi. Torosho's eyes widened with realization. He had been neglecting his son for almost a decade, and he had not even noticed it. He felt horrible as tears streamed his eyes deeply tears started to drip from his eyes. He scrambled to the reality of him being a bad parent. What have we done? We never paid any attention to him since he was 4, and that was when he was diagnosed with quietlessness, he said, started crying over that. What? We have to apologise to him. What if we apologise to him? Make him feel alive again? Maybe he won't forgive us, but we deserve it. But we at least apologise, and we'll promise to change for him, Izumi told them, and they nodded. Is he here? God, I'm such an awful father, not even knowing if my son's home or not. God, Shiro cursed as at himself. His shoes isn't in the shoe rack, so maybe he hasn't come home yet, Izumi contained, and her parents nodded. They waited for him to return to apologise to him, and they noticed him and the way he was mistreated. It was 6 in the evening. They waited for him to come home. Soon, minutes turned into hours. He was not even home. They started panicking at him not being home, yet because it was already 10 in the evening. They then called for help to find their son, who hadn't come home yet. Sorry, guys. They called Gran Torino. Sir Nightai, new recovery girl, Azawa, and the Bakugos. They all turned at the house and asked what the problem was. They explained everything that happened and the mention of neglecting Izuku for almost his life. Anger was the understatement to what the adults felt towards the Agas, since all were burning with rage. Mizuki slapped Inku's face in the face. It was so hard that she fell down onto the bottom of hard floor. As she kept crying, she had to be held back by her husband and Mr. Nightlight, since she was ready to pounce at her. You bitch! How dare you do that to Izuku, that poor child? How long do you think he had suffered because of your neglect towards him? A bitchy excuse of him being quirtless? You quirtless bastards. Mizuki ranted at the Yagis, who had their heads hanging low. Torosho, where is? Can't say his name. Toro. Oh, mate. I'm very. Here. I'm very disappointed in you. How will you think Nana will react when she knew that her successor just neglected his son for being quirtless, when you two were won. Gran Torino yelled and kicked him with his jets in the stomach. Recovery Girl then smacked them both with her cane. I can't believe you two. You better find yourself a new hero to heal you when you're in a battle, because I'm no longer serve with you all. Sorry, where was I? I'm going to read this from the line again, sorry, from Recovery Girl. I don't know where it was, sorry. Recovery Girl then smacked them both with her cane. I can't believe you two. You better find yourself a new hero to heal you when you're in battle, because I'm no longer in service with you all. She started as she smacked them both with her cane. Once we find that poor child, I'm demanding you both take off your custody of him. Clearly, he will no longer be staying in a household that have abused him mentally and emotionally. He will then be under UA custody and be given the life that he actually deserves. News told them with paw gripping on the cup of tea. The Yagis were about to protest, but was soon cut off by Mr. Zawa, glaring that struck them all. His eyes looked like he wanted to murder the two heroes for what they did to his nephew. You both will do what the rat said. I don't give a damn shit about your pain-ass excuse, because he won't ever have to be with you shitty as parents. I will gladly adopt him and train him to be a hero that he always wanted to be, and give him the love and care that an actual family gives to their kids. I may not be much, but I fucking know that I could at least give him more love that you suckers can ever give him. They didn't fought back since they were actually scared of Zawa, and it was the first time they had ever heard him scream with so much anger. That is why we have those... That's why he had those bandages on his arms, Kazi suddenly shouted, as all the adults looked at him with wide eyes. Brat, what do you mean by bandages? Mizuki asked him with a serious look. I saw Izuku's arms when school ended. We had an argument, and I saw his arms were wrapped in bandages, as some blood was seeing through them, he informed the adults. Everyone looked pale. Azawa then pushed the yogis aside with Mizuki, and they both head upstairs to Izuku's room. When they opened the door, the smell of disinfectant was covered the whole room. Disinfectant was covering the whole room. The room itself looked horrible, with a horrible in furniture and a mouldy bed. They investigated the whole room and found a razor with a dried up blood on the blade. They gasped and looked in the trash and can find bandages covered in blood. The rest of the adults went up and smelt the disinfectant in the room. As they covered their noses, how strong the smell was. They saw the whole room and gasped at the crummy state it was in. Mizuki then rushed out, grabbing Ko by the hair. She grabbed her to the bathroom harshly. She grabbed Inku by the hair. She dragged her into the bathroom harshly. She showed her the bloody razor and the bloody bandages. "This is what you deserve. This is what you drove your son into?" she yelled at the harsh as she continued to sob. On nodding to them that Izuku was already at a place where he wanted to end his life. Chapter 4. Version. Izuku had been walking in the woods silently, following the trail that will lead him to his final destination. He was well acquainted with the forest, as it was the only place to keep him calm when he felt the most lowest. Since he was always left alone by himself, he wandered the woods to try and make himself happy for once. He would listen to the sounds of leaves resting in the wind, and would watch the leaves fall down and ride the wind. It made him happy. He started wandering the woods when he was 8. It was the time when he gave up on trying to make his parents recognize and acknowledge him. He did everything he could to make note to his parents, but they always were wrapped around Izumi's fingers. She always in the spotlight, while he was always in the shadow behind the light. He got so sick of it, but it wasn't like he can do anything to change it. By the time he was 8, he accepted this depressing, harsh reality of him being invisible to the world, and world always be some that will stay in the darkness and loom over there for the rest of his life. He followed the creek that will lead him to his final spot. If he wanted to kill himself, at least he wanted to see something beautiful in his final moments, right? He then started thinking about the past and the shitty things that had gone through. He looked up the quietness passage and saw that 30% up the quietness percentage and saw that 30% quietness sororities kill themselves due to the dismission they received, and soon he will be part of that 30%. He then stopped at the tracks when he started remembering someone, Kazuki, who started crying slightly at the thought of him. He was no longer going to see him after he kills himself, and when they last saw each other, they thought, "Damn it, I knew it was going to do this. Then I should have at least heard him out," he said to himself, wiping the tears in his eyes. "Kazuki, I'll miss you. Ka-chan, I'll miss you. I'll just write down what I want him to know in my letter," he said as he took out the letter that was on his pocket and done a few things. He then finally reached his destination. There in front of him was a beautiful spring waterfall that looked like it came from a fairy tale story. It was majestic, beautiful, the perfect place for him to die. He started climbing up the rocks and led his grip on them not to fall. When he reached the top, he looked at the wonderful view from above. He took a deep breath and actually smiled genuinely. He then took off his shoes and socks and placed them down on the rock. He then took the letter out of his pocket and placed it gently inside the shoes to not let it blow away by the wind. He made his way to the edge of the waterfall. He looked at the moon that illuminated the light and smiled once more before closing his eyes and letting a few tears escape from them. "Goodbye," he said as he jumped off the waterfall to dive into the water. But something else happened. When his body touched the sun surface of the water, the whole spring waterfall came to glow pink light. It lifted the ease of darkness and made it look magical and beautiful. He then dropped to the water as it looked like the water swallowed him a hole when he fell. The water then came close and made a ripple along with it. Izuku disappeared into the water and the pink glow dimmed down slowly. The forest returned back to its full darkness. Back with the adults, they kept shouting pronouncement fondly at the family, shouting constantly at the family for what they had drove the poor boy to do. Kazuki started crying when he realized that he had done over the years to cope with all the pain he felt. He kept shouting at the family, as well as Mazuki, as they looked like they were ready to burn the house down. Neil was infected to the point where he threw his teacup to the ground out of sheer anger. We need to find that boy immediately. Who knows that he could be doing, and there's a huge chance that he will attempt suicide if we are not able to find him, Mizu said as they nodded. And you, Yasuki, or should I say, All Might and Esper, Mizu said, revealing their true identities, making Bakuko and Izumi gasp. I will be reporting you to the Hero Commission, and I will make sure that your pay as heroes will go down at least 70%, 80 to the minimum. He then left the room with the others. Kazuki looked back at Hosha and had to look of disgust in his eyes, knowing that his hero that he wanted to be like was someone like him that neglected their own son for being quirkless. I no longer want to be like you, All Might. I always admired you and how you were amazing, number one, but right now you're just a shitty father that hides his true colours to the public. You don't deserve to be number one. He then scowled, leaving them alone as he stomped away down the stairs. Toshi, I'm going to say, only felt guilty as his world sunk in his heart and broke into a million pieces. He can only blame himself and himself alone. The adults or went off on their plan to find the poor child and make sure that he was okay. The Yagis went down as well, as they felt glares of daggers shooting them. All Might, I will look into your future. It may give us a clue to where Izuku is, he told him, and he nodded. So Nightlight then approached Osha, and placed his hand on his shoulder and looked into his eyes as he used his quirk to look into the future. Their vision, he saw an underwater surrounded by nothing but sea water. He then saw a man with blue hair and ocean eyes that matched the sea, looking straight at him. Suddenly a giant creature started crawling itself around the van. It looked like a sea serpent. It looked like a ice-pin dragon in Majority. Sorry. Or sea serpent, I'm going to call it. And it was a pink ligament glow all over its scales. It made the dark water glow with its light. It soon faced him with a stare him down, and with glowing icy eyes at the roost to him. Sorry guys. It soon swam downwards, and its pink light soon disappeared along with it. The man with the blue hair then faced him, and his body started changing and morphing itself into a dragon. The dragon itself was made out of water completely. As it glared straight at him, it made a big roar and swallowed him with his jaws opening jaws wide opened, and took a bite of him. Nightlight screamed and fell down into the bottom as he frantically tried to gasp for air. He hid the panic in his eyes and nothing but fear. Night-Eye? What's the matter? What did you see? Ozawa asked him as he helped him. I saw something bizarre and unbelievable, he said. The others got near him, listened. I looked at maybe around 2 or 3 years or so. I was under water in the middle of the sea, and then in front of me was a man with blue hair and blue eyes. It was stared at me. Then the creature started closing around the man and looked like a Spartan dragon from those mythology books. Everyone gasped at the claims, as it was all unbelievable, but from the way he was shaking up, it was hard not to believe him, since his eyes told him that he was telling the truth. Then the dragon creature looked at me and roared before disappearing into the depths of the sea. The man looked at me again. This time he turned himself into a dragon of his own, and he was made out of nothing but water. He fixed his gaze up at me and started swimming to the direction, and down swallowed me whole. They all tensed up at the vision and realized it was Jora's future that Nightlight looked into. He looked pale, that there was a possibility of him being swallowed by a whole by a dragon. We must make haste, everyone. We must find the child before it's too late. I fear that he might change sides and to be in the league with those with bad influence. Not that I can blame him, Nizu said as he took a deep sigh. Now let's find him. Alright, that's the end of that one. I hope you guys liked it. Sorry if I'm not clear with some words. Right,